What is going on, sports card fiends? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day, and today we're here with a video on the main reason that I got into soccer cards. Originally, I was someone that just had gotten into the hobby because, like most other people, a friend told you about it, you're like, well, I like sports, I moderately enjoy maybe gambling a little bit. Personally, I was a big fan of Ultimate Team games and the flipping and the trading aspect of those markets. I was just really a fan. So whenever my buddy told me about sports cards, the worlds collided, and I was, off to the races doing what I like to do. Just in my natural element, something I've been doing for a while, but now could finally do it in a physical asset sense. So it was a great time. I started off with football and a good bit of basketball, a little bit of football. Over time, throughout the first few months, I then was just kind of thinking more and more, about where the markets were, comparing basketball to football and saying, well, football has so much room to grow. But then you go down, you're like, all right, baseball, but baseball's old, mostly older people. And so not really something I'm too into. Me and my friends now, we don't really discuss baseball too much. So kind of tossed that one out. And then beyond that, I was like, well, what do I like? What am I into? And so soccer and UFC were kind of the two, but soccer a lot more just because it was definitely, it's something I watch more, but it's also very easy to kind of get into a bunch of different realms of it. UFC is relatively new, and, you have kind of the recent people, but I don't know, it's very like star or bust, so it's just hard, it's very difficult, and there's not a lot of like old goats and like accessible cards of a lot of them, so it's just not a complete market. Soccer was the most complete and most just neglected market in my opinion, so that's why I was like, well, I like it, and I'll hop on over there. And the main reason that I moved away from basketball and football and moved into soccer is because I felt like basketball and football had more inorganic demand. And that's kind of what my decision came down to at the end of the day. Wasn't what is going to do better in the next couple months. What's going to be the thing I should try to buy now and then off to the moon we go. You don't want to operate like that. You want to be somewhere where you feel like the market is stable. People are buying things they enjoy and want to have. That way, you don't have a large percent of people that want to sell and get out and move and make different moves. You want to have people that are there for that. You want to have people that enjoy it. And at the same time, I felt like a lot of organic demand was to come in the future, because personally the biggest factor for me was like I was big on FIFA Ultimate Team card trading and flipping, like I was talking about. So I knew how big that community was over on FIFA, and if even a little bit of that community saw what was going on in soccer cards, I could tell you they'd be all over it. And over time, maybe that'll happen. I've heard that the sidemen and like more European football type of soccer, I guess, but you get the idea. But soccer people are kind of getting into it, and I think it'll just grow. And if it does, the potential and the actual just, demand, the organic demand will be there, whether it be the game growing in America or the collecting of it growing outside of America. So there's a couple different avenues at it. And that is really what it all came down to. At the end of the day, basketball was something that had just gone so far. It started, way down, just like everything, but then had a nice 4 or 5 year, well, I guess like 3 to 4 year run of just absolutely killing it. And so after 3 or 4 years of something just absolutely dominating a market, there's gotta be a lot of inorganic demand there. And, it's hard to judge. There's no way to know. You can't necessarily tell, but at the same time, you kind of can. Like with how much stuff will draw back and what's going on in the market. Football was one where it became pretty obvious to me quick that it was pretty inorganic, because absolutely like positional players, they boomed before the season. I think in people just hoping and kind of perceiving that like fantasy football and positional player love will start to be the next big thing, and then dissipated. And maybe this year we'll see another resurgence of it. I would expect so. I'd hope so, because that would prove that, football's getting a little bigger and actually moving on to the other positions. But that's the thing. Football is essentially just quarterbacks. And other than that, you go look at vintage, it's very, very low price stuff. It's not anything people are fighting over. There are some, but again, very quarterback driven. While with soccer, you go back and look at vintage, there's always going to be a really high ceiling on soccer cards because the vintage side of it exists, but in just a very finite way. It's a perfect balance because it allows you to, have the knowledge, have the ability to get in if you want, but at the same time, it's pretty much out of most people's range at the high end. So then the modern market has tons of room to grow. So just the overall low pop, the desirability of just how people felt about soccer at the time. There wasn't a lot of people just trying to get in it to get rich. And now you could say that maybe we're starting to get there. But I think the only time I've ever really seen that with the soccer card market where there was a lot of inorganic demand, I think most people are going to know what I'm going to say, but it is the August kind of Prism Boom that happened, because then it was pretty obvious. I made Prism videos at the time talking about how it doesn't make sense how something is, going to, like those Ronaldo, Messi 2014 Prisms, they went up like 5-10x, and the only reason they went up that much is because it was such low pop at PSA because no one cared about it beforehand. So when something goes from not being cared about to trading for thousands of dollars in a short time span, yeah, probably not something you want to hop in on. So whenever that happened, a lot of people then looked at soccer and kind of bullied it. They were like, that's the inorganic demand. Look at that. What a bunch of idiots. And yes, the people that bought Prism at the peak are idiots. I'm sorry if you did. I mean, maybe one day you make your money back and then it doesn't matter. But, whenever something peaks like that, if you're buying in thinking that's the lowest you'll ever get it at, you're just not looking at the rest of the market. Because if something does boom like that, there are so many other things that would have to accordingly jump to make all of that sustainable. So whenever you see that, I would just recommend look at alternatives, look at other things. If it makes sense, if everything's doing the same thing, then, maybe it's the norm. But if that's not the case, you got to find your own thing. You got to do your own thing. So by now, soccer has established itself more so in the market and looks like it will continue going forward. I mean, the potential for the collectability outside of the US is great, and within the US, the potential for soccer going forward is really good. So I'm on both ends of this. I think that it has the best just organic demand. And right now, again, maybe you could say some of it is inorganic. And I think on the Haalands and on the Messi side, well, not the Messi, but more so Haaland and Mbappe recently, the Messi Ronaldos beforehand. But the thing is with Messi and Ronaldos, they will always stay up there because they're just pretty unattainable with the pop that they have. While Haaland's and Mbappe's, they're kind of a risk and their pop's a lot higher. So you don't have that kind of nailed on certainty to an extent like you do with the older stuff. But maybe Haaland's and Mbappe's have kind of gotten to that point. They absolutely mooned recently, and a big part of that, from what I can tell, is kind of the higher ups in the card community just starting to be more accepting and starting to flex the soccer card side of it a little bit more and more. Problem is, it's only really the top things at the moment that are really seeing that massive increase. But again, like I said before, whenever Prism or anything booms like that, there are other lockstep things that have to happen to make that a solidified price. So if you're in on that thing that booms, sell it and hop in on the other things, because they either will proportionally go up or they will go down, and so will the other assets. So you either, it's a freebie. You either make up that money that the market hadn't already found it should be worth yet, or you have essentially the same equity as you would have had in the other card. They just drop together, maybe both in price. So that would be how I would go about it overall, and that's kind of been how I've been going through the hobby. Just find something you like, and as long as you think there's true organic demand, beyond that, just have fun and enjoy it. And not that it matters, but I'll mention it at the end of the video. This isn't to say that the other hobbies aren't going to do well. They can't do well in the future. They won't sustain. Of course they will. Like I said before, when talking about other cards, everything kind of moves in lockstep. So for something to absolutely tank, so do the other things. So believe me when I say soccer cards are great, I love them, I enjoy them, but I'm still rooting for other sides of the hobby. I don't hope for their demise, because I know at the end of the day it would be my demise too. So don't worry, I'm with you, even if you don't enjoy soccer cards. cards. But at the end of the day, I have rebranded this to soccer channel, so I don't know what you're doing then. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Anything you want to tell me, let me know in a comment down below. And on top of that, if you want to see more videos like this as soon as we get live, make sure to subscribe. And with that said, hopefully you guys have a wonderful day, and peace.